Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm live in the studio. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Going to be talking about all things Manchester United, including Ruben Amorim. He's not took over yet at Old Trafford, but he is the talk of the town. His sporting side facing Manchester City tonight in the Champions League. He's been speaking ahead of that. He's been speaking in Portuguese ahead of that. We'll get into that in a minute. Letting us know all about not just what's going on in terms of Sporting versus City, but a little bit about Manchester United and how he came about becoming the Manchester United manager as well. Some really good stuff from that press conference and some stuff that made me cringe, which I'm going to get into. Make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. The usual suspects in the chat already. Jacoya Trot, Santa Notch says, morning Jay, please conduct this video in Mancunian, not English. I'll try my best. Mick Hollahorn, Brian Casey, good to see all you guys. Make sure you are hitting that like button, please, people. Let's talk a little bit about Ruben Amorim's press conference. Now, as you can see from the thumbnail, he said there, you know, if he wins, he's Sir Alex Ferguson, talking about if he beats Manchester City, then people will be sort of getting carried away and thinking he's the best coach ever and all that sort of stuff, which I get because I'm one of those people. I'll be watching the game tonight, and if he does win, I will be getting carried away. And I've spoke to a few Reds who probably feel the same. Obviously, you can't look too much into it. Like I said yesterday, if he loses, it doesn't matter. If he wins, it matters. But it'd be interesting to see how Sporting do against Manchester City. Manchester City have obviously been struggling. Got beat off Spurs in the League Cup. I say struggling, still near the top of the table. Got beat off Spurs in the League Cup. Lost away at Bournemouth, I think it was, in the Premier League. Missing Rodri's out for the rest of the season, of course. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare against Sporting. But we have to be honest about it. Look at the squad and the team and the resources that Manchester City have got compared to Sporting. It is a bit of David versus Goliath. You can see a tweet here from, I think it's from TNT. It says, in 1986, Man United had just 12 points after 10 league games and decided to hire Alex Ferguson, who had only managed in Scotland. In 2024, Man United have just 12 points after 10 league games and have hired Ruben Amorim, who has only managed in Portugal. So there you go. That's factual. You can't argue with that. That proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that Ruben Amorim is going to be the next Sir Alex Ferguson. You can't argue with those kind of statistics. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Let us know, did you watch that press conference? What did you make of it? There was a couple of other little tasty morsels in that press conference as well. He spoke about the Manchester City job because he was linked quite heavily with the Manchester City job, Ruben Amorim. I think it was a couple of seasons ago before Pep Guardiola signed his contracts and there was talk of Amorim taking over from him. But he sort of spoke about this. He said, obviously, it's something which crossed my mind, but I never had any doubt. My decision has been made. That's the club I want to work for, the context I want to be in, and where I want to continue my career. I didn't want anything else. It is a decision I thought about, but was not undecided about it. I wanted Man United, and that's what I did. So, I mean, you can gather from that what you want. It was funny because when he was appointed, or when it was announced, we were going to appoint him, when the sort of news broke, the amount of City sort of media, if you will, who quickly came out and said, well, City didn't really want him. City never wanted him. He was never going to take over from Pep. We didn't like him. It was a bit bizarre. It felt to me like the club had briefed it. So everyone, like, look, just to let you know, he was never in contention of taking over from Pep Guardiola, which wasn't what was being said at the time. And it's a similar thing with the sort of Amorim to Liverpool. When Klopp announced he was leaving, Amorim was heavily linked with that job. And I saw a lot of sort of news, Liverpool outlets saying, oh, look, he's the right guy. He could take over. Bright young coach in Europe. Sort of fits the mould of what Klopp was when he arrived. Could see this happening. Could see this working. All the rest of it. And then all of a sudden, you've got all these Liverpool publications saying, well, we never wanted him. It was always going to be Arne Slot. We never wanted Amorim. He's not for us. We didn't like his style of play. Bore off. You've never even watched his style of play. So maybe there's somewhere in between is the truth. Maybe the City and Liverpool looked at Amorim. Maybe they didn't fancy it 100%. Maybe he wasn't too keen on a move and he wanted to come to a big club like Manchester United, which is where he'll be heading. Get involved in the chat in the comments and let me know what you thought about his press conference. The thing that was trending yesterday that sort of everyone picked up on was Gary Cotterill, who is just, he's like Rent-A-Gob. They send him everywhere to just harass new Manchester United managers. You remember him running through the car park at Sellers Park, was it, chasing Erik ten Hag? You remember when didn't he go over to Ajax as well? I think he went over to Amsterdam to pester him in the car park then. And what I hate about Gary Cotterill, right, is not that he goes and asks these questions, because listen, every journalist asks stupid questions. Sometimes you get stitched up. I've been in a press conference where I had to ask Pep Guardiola a question. I knew he wouldn't want to answer, but my newsroom was like, look, we need to get him on this referees debate that's going on, ask him this question. And he just didn't answer it. He just said, I can't get involved in referees. So I get it. But Gary Cotterill is just beyond the pale. He does this all the time. It's always stupid questions. And what I don't like about it is not that he asks stupid questions, because that's one thing. It's how passive-aggressive he is. He's such a weasel. Because he did it yesterday. He went to the Sporting press conference and he asked Ruben Amorim to answer the question in English. Now, Ruben Amorim, now at these press conferences, it's probably been predetermined as well. Like, before the presser, the media will know, look, he's going to be speaking in Portuguese. There's a translator there who will translate it into English if you need it into English. But this press conference is going to be in Portuguese. His job right now is the manager of Sporting Lisbon. That's his job. He's doing what he's paid to do. He's not the manager at Manchester United. He doesn't have to pander to Sky Sports or anyone else. His job is to do what he's paid to do for Sporting Lisbon, and that's to do his press conference, answering questions in Portuguese. That's fine. Why wouldn't it? I've got no issue with that. So Gary Cotterill said to him, asked him a question, didn't answer it in English, said, well, can you answer it in English, please? And Ruben Amorim was like, no, this is going to be in Portuguese. And he was nice and friendly. He wasn't being funny with him. He was smiling. He said, oh, this is Portuguese. And then Gary Cotterill goes, well, that's a slight cold shoulder to all your English fans. Is it? Does that feel like a cold shoulder to you if you're an English fan of Ruben Amorim or a United fan? It doesn't to me. It just feels like Gary Cotterill being a complete and utter whopper like he always is. And I just think, just shut up, bore off. Do you remember when he went into the press conference at United and Eric and I remembered him when he got to Carrington, he was in the press conference there, and just refused to answer a question from him? And listen, I'm a journalist myself, come from that background. I never like to see people being ignored when they ask a question. But with Gary Cotterill, I'm making an exception. I think it's right that the club were just like, no, just don't bother with me. He's not here to get an answer. He's here to get a clip, something that everyone's chatting about. And to be fair, it's worked. But is it serious journalism? Is it right about getting an answer from him? Or is it just being a bit of a muppet? And that's what he's done. And this whole, it's a cold shoulder to English fans. He did it with Eric Ten Hag, if you remember, where he was like, oh, you'll have to get used to answering questions if you're going to take over at Manchester United. Yes, because famously at Ajax, you don't answer any questions. I don't even think they do press conferences at Ajax because it's such a small club. Just get a grip, honestly. It just annoys me. Get involved in the chat and the comments and let us know what you think. Brian Casey says, Gary Cotterill is a sorry excuse for a human being, never mind a journalist. Wow, he's gone in both barrels there. Wayne Jones says, TNT interview was totally different. It was quite good. I need to check that one out. Cucumber Water says, I will answer it in English if you can ask it in Portuguese. Miles says, Ruben should answer all future Sky questions in Portuguese. That would be quite funny, wouldn't it? Santa Notch says, I would have said, okay, I'll answer in English and then start answering Portuguese, saying stuff about Cotterill. Yeah, that would be quite funny, innit? Just slagging him off and that, saying things about him, saying I hate him and all that in Portuguese. It's just a bit of a storm in a teacup. Chatting to Joe Smith a minute ago, and he was saying this is a bit sort of a good taste for Ruben Amorim of what life is going to be like at Manchester United. You're going to have to deal with this kind of thing. The scrutiny is nothing like what it is at Sporting. I know Sporting are a huge club in Portugal, but Manchester United are always different gravy. You're going to get questions like this. You're going to get journalists who are looking for that scoop or that clip or whatever, plus the scrutiny is almost 10 times what you get at Sporting Lisbon. But I don't want to get too carried away because we've been here before, and I have anyway with Eric Ten Hag. But I like the way Ruben Amorim carries himself. He seems like a confident, relaxed guy. I always say this though, it is easy to be happy, confident and relaxed when you're winning football matches. And at the minute, Sporting can't stop winning football matches. That is all they're doing. So he's going to be in a pretty good mood, but he looks like that's his general demeanour anyway. I just hope that continues when he gets to Manchester United, because we've seen so many managers at Manchester United who arrive and they're all full of smiles and jokes and happiness. Even Jose was. And then by the end of it, they look like they're ready to jump off Barton Bridge. It's the job that can just ruin everyone. Hopefully that won't be the case with Ruben Amorim, though. What's next on the agenda? I've already forgot. Is it the stadium, Joe? What did we? Yeah, should we do the stadium? Sorry, I've forgotten already. Yeah, you can see it here. I think James Ducker in the Telegraph has had a bit of an exclusive. He says Man United will wait for post-budget developments before deciding whether to fund a new stadium or redevelop even. Historic home next summer. So it looks like it's going to be pushed back a little bit on the decision, what we're going to do about Old Trafford. It was interesting because I feel like this debate has shifted a lot with United fans. Make sure you're getting involved in the chat and the comments as well. And please hit that like button, people. Let's get to 200 likes. We've not even got to 100 yet. That's a disgrace. And I remember being asked about this I think it was on the BBC or something a few years ago, and I've kind of been of the opinion we should have a new stadium for a long time. I love United, I love Old Trafford, I love, the memories I've had there, the emotional attachment I've got to it, but I just think as a fit-for-purpose stadium, it ain't working. And I just wonder, how many times can you keep revamping it? How many times can you keep saying, oh yeah, let's just demolish this bit and rebuild that bit, or let's just not demolish it, the whole stadium, but let's just do this stand up, or let's just put a lick of paint on, or let's just fix this leaking roof, or let's just fix this, before you have to say, look, this is a 100-year-old stadium and it's showing, we need to start again. And I just feel like you can have the history, you can have the tradition, you can have the aura of Manchester United in a new stadium. I don't think you lose all that if you move to a different venue, and especially if that venue is right next to or right near where Old Trafford is now. However, a lot of people disagreed, and I get it because it is such an emotive subject. It does feel like there has been a bit of a shift, though. It does feel like more and more people, from what I speak to and from what you see on polls and stuff, are beginning to come around to the idea of a new stadium might not be a bad thing. And plus, we've got the opportunity now to get a new stadium. We might not always have that, because a new stadium, I think, is going to cost around £2 billion from some of the figures that are being quoted. You've not always got £2 billion that's on hand, and it feels like Ineos can make that happen, whether that is just their own money, investment, whatever, however they do it, sponsorship. But it looks like it could become a reality. However, we're going to have to wait and see whether it does become a reality. Let me know what you think. Ryan Pitt says, keeping the stadium in live support. Gabriel Ruaro says, would you prefer New Old Trafford, or New Trafford as a name? I don't know, to be honest with you. I've never really thought that. I don't know why I've not thought that. It's a pretty obvious question. I don't ever like any of them, if I'm being brutally honest. But I'd like them just call it Old Trafford. I don't know if that's feasible. Cromwick says, why aren't you speaking Portuguese, Jay? I'm a bit rusty on the old Portuguese. That's why I've decided to do this one in English, just for a change. Brian Casey says, can genuinely understand the arguments for both sides, but the foundations of Old Trafford are over 100 years old, and if we want the best in class, then we need a new stadium. I feel like that. I do feel like, because you're hindered as well as to what you can do at Old Trafford, because I think you've got the canal and the railway tracks on either side of the stadium, so there's only so much you can do. And it's quite interesting as well, because I was reading up this morning about some of the plans, and they were talking about how, I think, is it the freight train station or something is another part that could sort of scupper what they want to do. So look, there's lots of sort of caveats, so there's lots of questions to answer. It's what can you do? It's can you build here? Can you build there? How much is it going to cost? Then there's the emotional attachment. They've had this sort of task force that's come in, who are going to be sort of, having a look at all the different sides of everything and helping to make a decision. They're doing a bit of a poll as well, I think, with season ticket holders. So it'll be interesting to see the results of that. So there's lots going on in terms of the decision and what it's going to be. And now we're going to have to wait until they actually decide what to do. So it's not just we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to take a little while before we decide what we are going to do. Let me know what you think. Anna L says, do you not, Jay? I have $2 billion on hand. No, not quite at the minute. Ross Grimes says, still curious how it's all going to be funded. Yeah, there was a bit of uproar, wasn't there, when it looked like Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos were asking the government to put their hands in the pockets. I believe that was for some of the infrastructure parts, though. I think that's like, if you're going to build this stadium and you want better transport links and stuff like that, then maybe the government come in then, because if you're going to, let's say, for example, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's just say, as an example, you were to build a new tram station and a tram line. Now, would United fund that, or would the government fund that? Because, or Transport for Greater Manchester, whatever, which is the government in it, because it's not just for Old Trafford and it's part of the infrastructure. I don't know. I know a lot of people lost their minds with that idea. Not many United fans, or some United fans might not like it, but a lot of non-United fans were like, why should we, the taxpayer, fund Old Trafford? This is an outrage. This is disgusting. But I don't think it was quite like that. We'll wait and see what happens anyway. What's next on the agenda, Joseph? Zirkzee. Thank you. My memory is absolutely shocking. Right, this story, I think it started from the Sun. Hashtag don't buy the Sun. So you can take this with a pinch of salt if you want, and I don't blame you, to be honest with you. This is a story about, you can see there, about Erik ten Hag did not want to sign 36.5 million summer flop who turned up a stone overweight at Man United, with Dutchman left unhappy by signing's fitness condition. I have my doubts about the validity of this story in terms of where it's been sourced from. Yeah? Not for me to question some journalists, but I don't trust any of them. So, has this been properly sourced? Is this someone with inside info? Has this come from Erik ten Hag or someone who knows him? Or is this just guesswork? I feel it might be a bit of guesswork based on Zirkzee's appearances, Zirkzee's physical appearance as well. Does he look like he's carrying a bit of extra timber? And also the fact that he's not quite hit the ground running. Erik ten Hag did start him in games. I think he started the Spurs game. He started the Crystal Palace game, I think. It wasn't like he didn't start, but he was rotated. I think the way he was handled, to me, made sense. It looked about right. He didn't have much of a pre-season. He was carrying a bit of a knot, we were told as well. I know he went to the Euros with the Netherlands, but he barely played. So I didn't expect him to come in and play every game. And that would have been a bit weird if he did. Also as well, Rasmus Højlund coming back from injury happened during Ten Hag and Zirkzee obviously being at the club. So you had to accommodate him too. So I don't know. For me, it didn't quite feel like Erik ten Hag didn't rate him at all. I think he did rate him somewhat. Did he want him? Was this an Ineos signing or an Erik ten Hag signing? A lot of people looked at it as an Erik ten Hag signing purely because Zirkzee's Dutch. And it's like anything that's Dutch, well, that must be Erik ten Hag. He must have wanted him. It feels like Ineos are calling the shots with transfers a little bit more, or were this summer as well. So I'm not too sure on that one. I think, despite the fact I don't trust the Sun, there might be some truth in it that he was carrying a little bit of extra weight and Erik ten Hag wasn't completely happy with that. There might be some truth in it that Erik ten Hag hasn't got full control of the transfers anymore. We did hear that and isn't too happy about that. I think there's more. There was more sort of intrigue and more of a question mark over Erik ten Hag's attitude towards Manuel Ugarte, because Ugarte came in and it seemed at times like Erik ten Hag was reluctant to play him at all. I don't think he featured in a couple of games when he was fit. I think he was an unused substitute and certainly didn't start. And that seemed odd for a manager fighting for his life, which Erik ten Hag was, to not play a player who you've just brought in after you've not renewed or extended Sofyan Amrabat's loan, and you've let Scott McTominay go out, and Casemiro at the time was struggling, and yet you still didn't trust Manuel Ugarte. That to me seemed more obvious that the manager wasn't fully behind that transfer. I mean, he more or less said it, didn't he? He said, I didn't want Scott McTominay to leave. And we know that selling Scott McTominay funded part of the Ugarte deal. Also, as well, when we heard from Sofyan Amrabat ahead of the Fenerbahce game, when he was asked why he was not at Manchester United anymore, he said, if you want to know why I'm not United anymore, ask Mr. Wilcox. So that, to me, I mean, that's a clear and obvious sort of, it's not clear and obvious error, like we're in VAR. That was clear and obvious that it was Jason Wilcox who decided that we weren't going to keep hold of Sofyan Amrabat, not Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag brought him in. He'd played him in the FA Cup final. He seemed like a player that he trusted and wanted, but obviously he didn't get an extension. So yeah, it does feel like there's been a shift in the transfer policy, or there was a shift in the transfer policy. So there might be a little bit of truth in that. It looks quite sensationalist, doesn't it? Oh, he's overweight. I feel a little bit for Zirkzee. It's early doors, and I feel like everyone's almost made their mind up with him. The thing with any player at United, it's always the same. It takes one good performance and people can switch like that. I remember a few years ago when I think it was Paul Pogba, everyone had fallen out with him, everyone was hating on him, and it was like, oh, Pogba's no good, we need to get rid of him, he doesn't want to be here, he's got the wrong attitude, all this other stuff. I think we played Spurs away and Paul Pogba set up a goal and that was it. Everyone just switched like that. Everyone's like, oh, he's such a great player, he's what we've been missing. Zirkzee just needs a really good game. He had a good game, didn't he, at Selhurst Park for an hour. And he had, he got his goal against Fulham. We've seen glimpses. He's got a touch of that. He's a different type of player, but I think at times he reminds me of is almost like Lukaku in the sense that when he looks bad, he looks very bad. I know he's touches a lot better than Lukaku's, but sometimes when you see him doing certain things and they don't come off, it looks terrible. And it doesn't help when he's a big, stocky lad and it looks a little bit cumbersome and you're like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? Because I think if someone's making mistakes or giving the ball away, the least you want to see is that energy and that zippiness about them. But if you notice when he came on against Chelsea, he gets in good positions. He was in and around the areas where you want him in the areas. And at times, Rasmus Højlund's not in those areas. So I still think it's far too soon. It's insane to me that he's played, 9 Premier League games and already people are giving up on him. I get you can make you can have an opinion on him, because you can have an opinion on a player who's played 10 minutes. I just think it's a bit premature to call him a flop and to say it's not going to work out. I need to see a bit more of him. And I remember players like Patrice Evra, for example, came in, absolute stinker. Andy Cole, who I love, I absolutely adore Andy Cole. He's one of my favourite ever Manchester United players, one of the best strikers the Premier League's ever seen. He didn't quite hit. I know you might look at his record and go 12 goals in 18 games in his first half season at United, but 5 of those I think came against Ipswich, and there were games when he was struggling. And people were like, oh, he's not quite the same player he had at Newcastle, and he had to adapt his game a little bit. But once he got going, he absolutely smashed it and won the lot. Now, I'm not saying Zirkzee is going to be Andy Cole, but I just think that when you come to Manchester United, the expectation is different. Zirkzee's obviously playing catch up in terms of fitness and what happened in the summer. So I just feel we need to hold our horses a little bit when it comes to making a decision on whether he's good enough or not. Fitz says, would Zirkzee work as a shadow striker? Possibly. Me and Joe have been debating this about could he play as a 10, or I think Joe's sort of mentioned about the fact that you need a bit more work from him dropping deeper if he's going to be a 10. I'd like to see that tried at least once, perhaps if you could have maybe Casemiro and you got behind him, but then where does that leave Bruno Fernandes? I don't know. Well, it'd be interesting to see what happens with Ruben Amorim as well, because he likes 2 10s, doesn't he? So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But like I said earlier, I'm not quite giving up on Joshua Zirkzee, and I'm certainly not basing anything I've got to say off an article from The Sun. Wayne Davis, who's been a member of the Academy for 46 months, says Zirkzee hasn't looked great in fairness. Not sure what he can offer going forward. Could this be Anthony 2.0? I hope I'm wrong. I hope you are too. Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chat and the comments. Also, obrigado por assistir. Is that right? Yeah, there you go. If you know, you know. I'm Jay Moy. This has been a Paper Talk. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.